We're live to YouTube.
So it's going to go round up.
Council, we are live on Rogers and on the city's YouTube page. I'd like to begin our meeting in a good way, as we do, by acknowledging with respect that we're in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as Bawating. Bawating is home to Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. I'd also like to thank our media and broadcast partners for covering tonight's meeting. And with that, Madam Clerk, I'll pass it off to you.
Under agenda item 2, I have a motion by councillors. Councillor Caputo isn't here. Councillor Zagordo and Hollingsworth resolved that the minutes of regular council meeting of November 12, 2024, special council meeting of November 18, 2024, budget meeting of November 18, 2024, and special meeting of November 26, 2024 be approved.
All in favor? Before we move to the next agenda item, Madam Clerk, I'd like to recognize that since Wednesday of last week, or Tuesday of last week, really, we have had an inordinate amount of snow, record-breaking snowfall that the community has had. And want to thank the good folks over at Public Works who have kept our city going. I know Friday and Saturday were particularly challenging days. We are digging out, and our staff and all of our equipment has been at work around the clock since the snow started falling. The equipment has traveled roughly 40,000 kilometers over the last 6 days, which is enough to go around the entire Earth's surface once. So we have a great team that is doing a lot of work, and they are keeping the city moving. There will be some difficulties ahead as we scrape the roads down. There will be snow at the end of people's driveways. That there is just not the manpower and equipment power to clear out. So the end of driveways will be a challenge for folks over the coming days. We hope that people will understand as we continue to open up streets, widen them to make sure that emergency services can continue to access them, and that the safety of the roadway is assured across the entire community. So first off, thank you to the Public Works folks. I know we've got Susan Hamilton Beach and Dan Perry here representing Public Works, but to all the folks who are on the ground, so to speak, on the roads and on the equipment, thank you very much. And it's much appreciated that you've been able to keep us in as good of shape as we have been. So thank you, and perhaps a round of applause for all of Public Works. And with that, Madam Clerk, we will get back to our regular programming.
Okay. Agenda item 4, declarations of pecuniary interest. Mayor Shoemaker has declared with respect to the sale of Part 330 Industrial Park Crescent and the associated bylaw as the proposed purchaser is a client of the law firm. Councillor Vazo Allen has declared with respect to 149 Gore Street and the associated bylaw as she is the board president and founder of Grocer for Good. And Councillor Dufour has declared with respect to the amending parking lot lease with Sault Ste. Marie Housing Corporation and its associated bylaw. He's also declared with respect to the Supra Box Key Agreement, Fire Services and EMS, and the Land Ambulance Maintenance Agreement Renewal, and associated bylaws. And all of those are because he is an employee of the District of Sault Ste. Marie Social Services Administration Board. And I don't have any other.
Council, any other declarations? Seeing none.
And I have a motion by Councillors Zagordo and Hollingsworth, resolved that the agenda for December 2, 2024 City Council meeting as presented be approved.
All in favor? That carries.
And there is a planning item. It is a 1224 OP Sackville Road Extension Official Plan Amendment. I have a motion by Councillors Zagordo and Hollingsworth, resolved that the report of the intermediate planner dated December 2, 2024 concerning a 1224 OP amendment Sackville Road Extension be received, and that Council amend the street classification map Schedule D of the official plan in the following manner. Amendment 255, redesignate the existing Sackville Road 870 meters from urban local to urban collector, and Amendment 256, designate the proposed Sackville Road extension to urban collector, and that the legal department be requested to prepare the necessary bylaw to effect the same.
Mr. Tenazzo, could we have you give us us and the public a brief overview of this application?
Thank you, Mayor Shoemaker. This application recommends two amendments to the transportation network map of the official plan, essentially to facilitate an extension of Sackville Road from its current terminus at Mary Street north to Third Line. For background, Council has already approved an environmental assessment associated with this project. In 2017, council denied a similar official plan amendment application. As Sackville at that time, the Sackville extension was not deemed to be a priority. More recently, in July of this year, council approved engineering's 5-year capital plan, which included the Sackville Road extension. Then in August 2024, council granted approvals to retain a consultant for the detailed design and administration of the project. Given these approvals, we generally view this as a technical amendment to the OP. It is noted that the recommended approvals are consistent with what's in the current draft official plan, which was presented to council in April 2023 and will be brought back for final approvals early next year. Planning staff were contacted by about 10 members of the public, and there are 2 letters on council's addendum. It's recommended that council approve this application. Myself and the manager or the director of planning are available should council have any questions. And there's at least 1 member of the public that wishes to speak to this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tenazzo. Members of the public here to speak in favor of this application first? Seeing none. Members of the public here to speak in opposition to? Yep, Mr. Brown, to the podium, please.
Thank you, Mayor Shoemaker. I appreciate that. I'm not sure if I'm here to speak in favor of, actually, I think I am in favor of it. And, but there's a lot to discuss. So first, I'd like to thank Planner Kirkle. He was very helpful in helping me weave my way through this long and arduous road of getting something that's really good for the community in terms of the Sackville Road extension. And secondly, I'd like to thank Maggie McCauley, who, because I live on Mary Avenue, I'm concerned about traffic cut-throughs from the new Sackville Road through across Mary Avenue to North Street, and which is the most direct route to downtown. Mary Avenue represents the smallest, the shortest distance from a functional collector, as Planner Kirkle calls them, from the Sackville to the North Street to downtown. So we're extremely concerned about, on Mary Avenue, about, traffic cut-throughs. And so I asked Engineer McCauley if she would do some baseline studies on the traffic volumes, and she arranged for a box on my lamppost to do just that, so that afterwards we could see how the volumes had increased. So appreciate that very much. The third thing I'd like to say is that on the council procedure, statutory meetings like this are not subject to the delegation rules. So I'm allowed to speak as long as I want. You probably are aware of that. I just wanted to make sure that, nobody cut me off, because as I said, there's a lot to get to. The first thing I want to get to is the planner Tenazzo has advised me that only people who live on Sackville or who live on the roads that are affected immediately by this extension can appeal. And I don't think, I've been talking to all those people on Sackville, or a large number of them, and they've all come to resign themselves to the fact that this extension is going to go through, and it's beneficial for traffic congestion on Great Northern Road. But they feel like they're being punished almost. So I created a petition for them, and I have 27 signatures that have their names, their addresses, and their signatures. And it requests of City Council that that you do this thing right. You do it right, and you do it right from immediately. And what does that mean? Well, that means that they're looking for the lower portion of Sackville to be paved and reinforced at the same time or before the upper part gets done.
Mr. Brown, you're correct that there's no time limit on these delegations, but it does have to pertain to the official plan amendment.
Yeah, this is the official plan amendment, like okay, so let me get to that then. So what they're saying in this petition is they're fully in support of changing the designation to an urban collector, as long as you commit by having stipulations that they get a brand new reinforced road that has urban collector engineering standards, which are different from planning standards, and that they don't have to pay for it. The reason being is every one of them, to a man, and I spoke to 29 people and asked them to sign the petition. One refused to because she has her grandkids there and she's concerned for their safety, and that's Grandma Becky. And the other was a gentleman who said, they're just going to do what they want. And so I didn't come back and say, well, do you want a new road or not? Because that's what this is asking for. So anyways, I don't believe you guys don't hear what we're saying. I mean, and they all said also that they, every time a bus goes by, their houses shake tremendously with the existing road. And every time a truck from the northern part of that road goes by, like a heavy truck, and there are lots of them, their houses shake. And when this thing goes through, according to the planning report, it's going to increase a minimum of 60% the volumes and up to 100% of the volumes, from 4,000 to 8,000. And that's if the 8,000 is accurate. So what they're asking with these written submissions is for you to put in those stipulations that they get a new road with no local improvement charges, so that they're protected from these vibrations that are going to happen, and so that they can contribute to the alleviation of traffic on the Great Northern Road. Because if not, they can appeal this thing. Because back in they recently approved EA, a requirement was, in the evaluation criteria, was that council would have to spend money to improve the existing roads and the existing intersections. That's in the approved EA. So if you do not do that, it makes it appealable. And I will help them through that. But that's what nobody wants. Nobody wants that. We all want to have this extension with brand new pavement all the way through that costs nobody anything, that unlocks the land, that releases, untold millions of assessment dollars, and everybody gets what they want to a certain extent. The people on Sackville are getting the least, but at least they get something. They get the opportunity for potentially their houses not shaking. So with that, I'll submit these written submissions. I don't know who I'd submit them to.
You can send them to the clerk, Mr. Brown.
I submitted my other written submission to the planner Kirkle. according to the Planning Act, I have to do it before you make a decision. Otherwise, it's not considered appeal, something that could be the basis of an appeal. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Others here speaking in opposition to the, to the council report? Yes, ma'am. If you could please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Angela Stangetta, and my husband and I, Michael, live on Northridge Road for 32 years. And we also have some other neighbors here, Brian Speakman, Mike and Stella Savino, and Luz Avalaggio. They live on the east side of Northridge, which the road would go behind them. Excuse me. And we live on the west side. What our concern is opening Northridge, which has been a dead end forever. And the way we see it, or the way maybe I see it, is that it would be a thoroughfare. The first road that they'd get to.
If I could just, folks in the gallery, if you could not speak when others are speaking, it's hard to hear when,
Sorry.
Thank you.
Are you talking to me?
No,
Oh,
go ahead.
okay.
You've got the mic.
Yeah, so this is, we know that it's inevitable that it will happen. It's just that the end of the road, if people are coming from third line, it's going to be a racetrack through there. And we've enjoyed a very quiet street for all these years. And that is what my main concern is, and I'm thinking others as well, because the kids do play on the street quite often. And then it's been like that. Like I said, I've been there 32 years. So this is my only, it doesn't say on this plan if it's going to be open or not, but that's my concern, is I think it should go through to Sackville and not be opened up to Northridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others here speaking in favor and opposition? Please introduce yourself.
Luz Avalaggio. We've been putting up with the buses blowing their horns at early hours all year. And then Lafarge concrete guys, a racket. And now this. I mean, and then if they extend Northridge to hook up to Sackville, I mean, I've been there 41 years. I mean, I don't know, is the plan to put it on the west side of the electric towers, or on the east side?
We can get that information, sir. I don't know off the top of my head, but council can ask these questions, these clarifying questions of staff.
The way the map is, there's, it really doesn't say the extent of the road. I mean, that's going to be like how far from my garage entrance that another garage is going to be like Highway 17 there. And then plus all the people in Fort Creek will probably take Northridge onto this extension as well. So, and I understand there's a caveat about 238 houses now that may change the direction on which way this thing goes. So I thought this was information, so I didn't realize it was city council, because I'm not prepared for this, but I will be very shortly.
Okay.
And then the issue with the buses blowing their horns and Lafarge. I mean, I have recordings of all this stuff, but I will be doing that at a separate venue. You look forward to seeing me shortly about that one.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there others here? Okay, council, questions? Councillor Hollingsworth? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Maggie McCauley. Miss Maggie McCauley's not here. May I? Okay, Mr. Rumio. A number of us are on the speed task force, And a number of creative ways have already been implemented, and more creative ways are being implemented over the next 6 months to a year on how to slow down traffic. Can you please comment on when a new road's built or a new road is altered, how are we going to reduce traffic? I just want to ask this because that one particular constituent is concerned about children, about being a speedway and so forth. Can you please elaborate how we as a city are concerned for safety, are concerned for speeders slowing down, and especially for the safety of our community, safety of our children?
Dear Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, we will review all projects that are implemented, road projects, through our traffic calming and seek guidance from our speed management task force. So I believe that there is a traffic calming policy that.
That's correct. If I can elaborate, it was a resolution put forward by myself and some other councillors that whenever a new road is built or a road is altered, that all basically road diets, all tools, all basically possible creative methods to reduce speeders will be looked at and implemented. If that's my understanding, I believe that's what we have discussed in depth at the Speed Task Force. Is that your understanding?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, yes. Where appropriate, we'll use traffic calming measures, if appropriate. If the road classification is appropriate, we'll choose select a traffic calming measure that can be implemented. It cannot be implemented on all roads, but certainly we will review that in every case.
Okay, I was under the impression that it's going to be taken very seriously. So I just mentioned this because this one particular constituent, thank you for coming to the microphone. I see you over there. I hope that helps you. And again, just to reiterate, we do take speeders, we do take safety very, very seriously, along with our police department and many other partners. So thank you for your comment. And if there's anything else, please reach out.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Bruni?
Actually, I have one more
Sorry.
question.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. The other question I have is for the gentleman that was asking about which side of the power lines. Through you, Mayor, I'm not sure if it's going to be Mr. Vero, who's more familiar with the project, but Mr. Rumil again, can you comment, do you know, to answer this gentleman's question about which side of the power lines?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, I believe the new road alignment is just on the west edge of the power corridor.
Southwest, is that what I heard?
West. Pardon me. The new road alignment jogs east and just follows the east edge of the power lines.
Okay, thank you. To the gentleman that was asked that question, are you?
Councillor Hollingsworth, no, we're not back and forth with the audience.
And one last question through you, Mayor, to, again, Mr. Ramil. It's my understanding when I read the information report that the Conservation Authority has been consulted for environmental. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, yes, that is correct.
Okay. And if I read the report correctly, I don't think there's any red flags with regards to the environment. Is that my understanding?
That is accurate.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Just thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. I'm going to clarify that point because I think it's important because it was asked of us. The Sackville extension will be east of the power line, so there will be a fairly good-sized green space buffer between the back ends of the houses on, I think it's Northridge, and the western edge of the street. Is that correct, Mr. Rumil?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bruni?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question to Mr. Rumio regarding, there is a laneway on the east side of Northridge that goes down. Would that laneway be affected at all? Because it's been there for years and they have access, the residents have access to their garages in the back of their properties.
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bruni, so the road will be jogging to the east of that. So there will be, that would be the buffer that Mayor was just speaking about at Northridge as well. So it would not be affected.
They won't be affected. Okay, good, thank you. Also, according to the newspaper article and in the report, possibility of 238 dwellings can be built. Is that owned, is that property, is it owned by the city or is it privately owned?
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bruni, that is a private development that would be opened up through the.
And has there been any talks with the developer or the owner of the property?
Mr. Mayor, there has. I could maybe defer this over to the planning director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, several years ago, the developer was looking at this. There hasn't been any more recent discussions, but the developer is aware of the Sackville extension and the potential.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bruni. Councillor Bezo-Allen?
Thank you. Just 2 items, and I think just to further confirm access and the folks that are in the Northridge area, Mr. Ramil, the only access from the Sackville extension is going to be through Mary Street from what I see with the draft road alignment. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bezo-Allen, that is correct.
So there'll be no back and forth or any access from the neighborhoods that are of concern.
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bezo-Allen, it would be at Mary Street and the existing intersections with Sackville.
Okay, which is already existing.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, thank you. And just one other question. It came through from a constituent to Mr. Tonazzo concerning the medium density. I'm assuming, Peter, that that would be the property that's vacant to the, I guess, to the north of the existing subdivisions. Would that be correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bezo-Allen, that's correct. It's a vacant property that's just north, but it's really bounded by a pretty significant ravine, the entire way around it.
Okay. So in terms of, in the report of there being possibility of medium density subdivisions or developments, you don't have any confirmation of that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. We don't have any confirmation at this time.
Okay. Is it assumed that with the Sackville Road extension?
Just Councillor Rumil. Mr. Rumil wanted to add to that response.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify that there will be a connection at Northridge, but just a pedestrian connection.
A pedestrian connection, will it be
extended, but a pedestrian walkway of some sort?
Okay. Okay. And so, thank you for that, Mr. Ramil. So it'll just be pedestrian only with a walkway. So in terms of the potential medium density, do you feel, Mr. Tonazzo, by having the extension that might attract, whether it's the current developer, landowner, or looking to offload, would that be a possibility for further housing in that area?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bezo-Allen, as I mentioned, at this point, it's a piece of property that's really close to the end of North Street. It's also very close to Third Line, but there's significant ravines that would make it very costly to bring an access in. Once Sackville goes through, that's to the flat part of the property, so it will really bring frontage and access right to the doorstep of the property.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, Councillor Bezo-Allen. Councillor Caputo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Rumil, changing Sackville from an urban collector, or sorry, urban local to urban collector, what does that mean? What classifications are changing?
Urban local roads would be more of just a strictly residential road. Urban collector would be, so there'd be local roads, collector roads, arterial roads. So the collector roads sort of link arterial roads, so more of a conveyance of traffic.
So essentially, we're expecting more traffic on Sackville.
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Caputo, yes.
Okay, so with that being said, does that change the way the road is going to be built? Is it going to be built to withstand more traffic? And are we bringing in, like, are transports and big trucks going to be allowed in that area?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Caputo, no, there's no plan to change the truck route designation.
Okay.
A collector road comparatively, like Pine Street, like it's a 2-lane road, it's a collector road, and the traffic structure of the road would be similar to other roads of that type in the city.
So with these changes, will there be any proposed road changes or changes to classifications of any other streets in the area due to increased traffic?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Caputo, I believe it's just Sackville.
Okay, so we're not expecting to see a lot more traffic going through the Fort Creek area, Northridge, that due to this extension?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Caputo, I would believe they would just be local access. I mean,
Okay. Someone had written in asking about the winter thaw. Let me pull it up. A resident is wondering here. Okay. Sorry, I pulled up the wrong email here. There it is. Winter thaw and runoff from winter snowbanks into our backyards. There used to be a diversion ditch that the city maintained. If that isn't in place, the thaw will go into our backyards. Is that a concern that we have?
through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Caputo, the new Sackville Road is going to have a storm sewer system, so it'll dealing with all of its own water.
And Mr. Ramil, finally, with the increased amount of traffic, is there any proposal for like lowered speed limits, considering that there are a number of schools in the area?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Caputo, at this time, there would be no recommendation to be anything other than the default speed limit, which at this time is 50 kilometers an hour, but is under review as well.
Okay, and then, sorry, one final. Are sidewalks being considered for this road?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Caputo, we are proposing a multi-use trail of some form.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Councillor Zagordo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Rumiel. We mentioned a moment ago that there is a buffer between the property line and the road. Can we be more accurate, or do we have an accurate number exactly how many feet or yards that might be?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Zagordo. So from the rear lot lines on Northridge to the eastern lot line of the right-of-way right now is about 80 meters. So the goal is to orient or align the road as far east as possible. So I would suggest you'd be maybe plus or minus 50 meters between the western edge of the road and the rear lot line.
So in terms of visual, that's like half a football field length to 3/4. So it's quite substantial, I would assume.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, it's 50 meters,
50 meters.
plus or minus.
Yeah, sometimes hard to visualize 50, but yes, that's great. That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zagordo. Councillor Spina?
Sorry, just one question that was from a constituent here. And I think through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramil, and it was the question about, I think it reads, if there are any bylaws that limit how many, I'll read it to you from the question. Are there any bylaws as to how many access streets into populated residential areas? Like from Sackville into Fort Creek, as there's a lot of traffic and they have 2 access streets, which have heavy traffic volumes. I don't think there's a bylaw, but I would ask.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Spina, I think she's referring to how many intersections with Sackville Road.
I think it is,
so
yes.
We've mentioned that already. It would be Mary, third line, obviously. And that was it.
Right.
And second line.
Yeah.
Is there any bylaw that limits that number?
Not to my knowledge.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's all. Thank you, Councillor Spina. The only other question that was asked of folks who are here is the upgrade of the current portion of Sackville. Can you give us an indication of if that's going to be done and what class it will be done to and what class it currently is?
So, Mr. Mayor, the existing Sackville Road is a Class B section, meaning it doesn't have storm sewers, it has ditches. It would, like of all of our roads, we monitor them on a yearly basis through our asset management programs, and it likely will, when extension is done, will probably prioritize a bit higher with the added traffic, but that will be dealt with in future capital plans. We do, for our capital transportation program, it is a rolling program, so every year it gets updated and priorities change for year 3, 4, or 5, wherever it may be. So it is possible that that portion of Sackville could be prioritized higher after this is done. It is a long distance. It's 1.2 kilometers, so it's not a project that we would normally see done in 1 year. That would probably be phased over a couple of years if it rose to the top.
Thank you. Good. Just a follow-up on that, yeah?
Sure. Just a follow-up on it. Would the road be resurfaced?
Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Bruni, at this time, we don't have any plan to resurface the road like in concert with the new proposed extension. Public Works would be responsible for doing the same level of maintenance that they always provide.
Thank you, Councilor Bruni. Okay, Council. We can have a vote on this matter. Has the motion been read, Madam
Read
Clerk?
the motion. I'm just opening it for voting.
Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you, folks. Council, that brings us to 8.8, which is response to the questions that were posed of police services at the November 12th meeting. I believe the chief has some information from a board meeting earlier today of the Police Service Board that he can provide to us, Chief, on changes to your budget since you last presented. Could you give us a breakdown on that? Welcome to Council.
Council, always good to be back. Good news, after our board meeting today, we went from 8.19, which was presented to council, to 6.79. The reason that occurred is we had 4 funding sources that were not available to us in August when the original budget was submitted. And as a result of that 3 months, we firmed up these 4 funding sources. One of them is the 2 major school boards are funding an officer in a high school at $135,000. We also had a payment to another police service for some of our K-9 unit equipment at $200,000. We also have a bail compliance grant for $100,000, and we received a one-time grant of $85,000 from the Ministry of Attorney General for disclosure protocols. So those 4 revenue sources allowed us to go from 8.19 to 6.79.
Thank you, Chief. Council, the questions that were posed on the 12th are attached as responses. Is there any follow-up from those? Councillor Bezuallen?
Thank you, and thank you, Chief, and congratulations on the funding coming through. That's good news. It's on page 2 of 5 in the report that you presented, and it was a question that I provided. So on your presentation that you did in November 20th, 2023, verbatim, salary increases of 5.42% are due to complement increases for and contracted CBA settlement for 2024. In the budget that you're presenting to us, you're showing a salary increase of 6.4% for 3 officers. And while I appreciate the answer, it didn't really, the question was, why the difference? Why 5.42 for those 4 additional FTEs in your presentation last year, but the presentation this year for 2025 budget, salary increase of 6.4% for 3 officers. So I'm just trying to understand the rationale if you're adding one less FTE, why is that increase there? Not about the global budget, it was just that one portion of it.
So your question is not for 23, but for 24 budget was X and 25 was Y, but they had two different numbers of FTEs, correct?
Correct. So we had 4 additional FTEs in the 2024 budget that you presented in November 20th, 2023. And in the budget that you presented to us a few weeks ago, it was 6.4% increase for 3 officers. So my question is, when there's one less officer, but we have a 6.4% increase versus the 5.42 for 4 additional FTEs, like what is the rationale in that calculation?
No problem. So you have a copy of our response?
Yes, and so it went on to like other things.
Why 3 is this, 4 is this, because in 24, it was a 7.8% increase with a collective agreement of 3%. And the different things there, 4 dispatchers, 4 DEMs. And then in 25, we were down to 6.4 with a collective agreement of 2.01. So hopefully that explains the disparity. But you're saying, forget all the dispatchers and DEM stuff, just talk about the officers.
Correct. Yeah.
I can't tell you that from this podium, but I, through the board, can respond to that specifically for you.
Yeah, that was my specific question. Okay. Yeah, okay, thank you.
That's fair.
Thank you, Councillor Bezuilen. Other councillors? Okay, seeing none, will you be able to get us that response by next Monday, our budget meeting?
I'll get it to you tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, Chief. There's nothing to vote on that one, Madam Clerk?
There's not.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Board Chair Bruno. Council, I believe that brings us to consent. Am I correct about that, Madam Clerk?
And agenda items 7.13, 7.14, and 7.16 are accepted because of conflicts.
Anyone with items on consent? Councillor Hollingsworth?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Just really quite simple. The item I'll start with is 7.5, RFP for wood waste grinding. 7.5, and that is through you, Mayor, to the author of, I'm not sure,
It'll be to Public Works.
yeah, so.
If you just want to, do you have another item on consent?
Yep.
We'll get the Public Works folks back here in a sec.
Okay, let's jump to 7.9. And 7.9 is basically,
Community development grants?
yep, exactly. So through you, Mayor, to Miss Emily Cormier. I've always said this, I'll say again, I love this fund. It's such promising, positive fun. The green initiatives, you listed, I believe I read it correctly, Goma University Invasive Species Sign Project and Sioux Club Hub White Pines Little Forest and Eastview Public School Outdoor Laboratory Project. I believe those are the 2 that you're asking for approval?
Correct.
Okay. For the viewers at home, I did have basically a teacher reach out to me. Can you just elaborate for the Sioux Climate Hub White Pines Little Forest at Eastview Public School Outdoor Laboratory? Can you just give me an idea what that's all about for the viewers at home?
Sure. Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth. So this is going to be the second little forest that the Sioux Climate Hub establishes in Sault Ste. Marie. It's essentially taking an area of land that's just normally with grass, and they prepare the soil in phase 1. Phase 2, they plant some trees, shrubs, native flowers, etc., and essentially rewild the space. The second component of this application is to build on the first little forest that the Sioux Climate Hub built in Sault Ste. Marie this year at Eastview Public School, and they are preparing an outdoor lab arm where they can teach students and teachers different methodologies to learn about the outdoor living laboratories, the impacts of the classroom, the plants, etc.
Okay. The constituent who's a teacher did ask for me to ask you, Is this linked into, do you know, to Sioux College outdoor lab programs?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, no.
Okay. Thank you. That's all for that item.
Anyone else on 7.9? Councillor Hollingsworth, Public Works is back here. If you want to go back to 7.5, I think it was, yeah.
Sure. So 7.5 RFP for wind waste grinding through you, Mayor, to Ms. Hamilton Beach. Very simple, straightforward. The byproduct, the grinding, is it going to be repurposed? For example, for hiking trails, can you repurpose the grounds, or is it just basically not able to repurpose it for green initiatives?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth. We actually repurpose it within our waste management program. So it is very valuable commodity at this point in time. Should we never have those uses available to us, then we would certainly take it offsite.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Anyone else on 7.5? Go ahead, Councillor Hollingsworth. Other items?
7.10, Enbridge Municipal. I just have it cut off here. Enbridge Municipal Climate Action Incentive through you, Mayor, to Miss Emily Cormier again. This is once again another great news story about Enbridge. And if I read the report correctly, they're going to, I believe, give us, if I read this correct, $10,000. Is that correct?
That's through you, Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth. That is correct.
Okay. Over what period of time?
This is an annual amount, and the fund will run, we know for sure, until next year, and then Enbridge will be reevaluating the amount of monies that they give to municipalities.
Okay. Again, that's outstanding. And how are you recognizing Enbridge for their wonderful donation?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, this is funding as a part of Enbridge's corporate responsibility framework. So we do acknowledge their involvement through different projects as stakeholders, et cetera. But this is just part of their programming. Us, as well as other municipalities, have received this.
Okay, great. Last question. Again, Ms. Cormier, Enbridge has come up and done a wonderful donation. Kind of off topic, but have we received any other corporate donations similar? Or maybe in the future, can you just email us if there's any other corporate donations that have come to support our green initiatives?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, certainly.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Anyone else on 7.10? Seeing none, Councillor Hollingsworth, other items on consent?
7.17, more homes built faster.
Mm-hmm.
I just have some questions through you, Mayor, for clarification. And I'm just going to direct those questions to, just bear with me. Actually, would it be through Mr. Ver? Is that the best approach, or Mr.
Probably Mr. Tenaz.
Tenazzo? Okay. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Tenazzo. Mr. Tenazzo, I went into the different links with regards to this particular letter that came from the minister. This is very positive again for density. Can you comment on, did we as a community review these proposals, and did we have a chance to give our feedback before these were actually approved?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth. So the legislation I think you're referring to is what you hear in the media is like 3 units as a matter of right. We actually went ahead of the game. We're generally supportive of that legislation, and through the gentle density regulations, the amendments to the zoning bylaw that council approved, I believe in March of this year, we're on side with those new regulations, so we don't have to do anything to amend our zoning bylaw, in our opinion, at this time.
Okay, great. I just think it's important for you to say that, just to again clarify. I always use this opportunity to educate our communities, since so many people listen to council, and of course our local media is always doing a great job reporting on this. This is again a very positive for continuous building. The other question I have, just for clarification for the viewers at home, is if I read this correctly, there's the units you mentioned that are in the primary building or primary home, but then there's auxiliary, which is an example like a garage. So if I understand an example like a garage can have a unit that they can rent out, is that correct? Or just use for another family member?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the way that the legislation reads, you have kind of your main dwelling unit, then what they call accessory dwelling units. So you're allowed up to a total of 3. So it'd be 1 main dwelling unit, 2 accessory. The accessory could be within a basement apartment. They could be in a garage. They could be as a standalone structure.
Okay. And a third question, with regards to vehicles, how can we manage the number of vehicles in a person's driveway, knowing that there's a good chance that with more people living in these buildings, there'll be more vehicles? How can we manage that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we call them performance standards, essentially. You know, the legislation says 3 units as a matter of right, but you still have to be able to fit the 3 units on the property. So we still have setbacks. We have maximum height, maximum lot coverage, and minimum parking requirements. So you still have to be able to fit that minimum parking requirement, which in our case is 1 parking space per dwelling unit.
Okay, great. And final question, with regards to emergency services, are there anything that we need to know about? Can emergency services get in and properly service a fire or service any health-related matters? I know that read the report that public health is always involved in this legislature and fire, but can you just elaborate on that, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I may defer to the fire chief as well on this, but generally those are building code matters that are quite black and white. So you know, again, you can build up to 3 units, but you have to meet various performance standards, and the building code would be one of those. The building has to be to code. There's potential fire separations depending on how far apart the buildings are, and then certainly fire has to be able, you know, there has to be a hydrant in close proximity, and they have to have the ability to get in there.
Okay, great. And actually, one last question. It was mentioned that this is focused on municipalities that basically have water and sewage services. However, we do have areas within our city that are on septics and are on wells. I'm under the impression that even those areas can follow this new legislation.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in our case, we limit it to 2 units per lot, generally speaking, in areas that aren't serviced by municipal water and sewer services.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Anyone else on 717? On 717, Councillor Vezowan?
That was my only item on consent.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. A lot of my questions have been asked. Mr. Tonazzo, in terms of rollout with the ARUs and with the community improvement plan, when do you anticipate guidelines and people applying for this to happen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Vezowan. And so the rollout for the certain incentives, the tax increment equivalent grant, those are open now, and we're accepting applications. As far as the per door grants and the Sioux Foundations, which is providing funds to nonprofits to do feasibility studies, the rollout will start January 1st, and we're just in the final touches right now of putting out the guidelines and getting our marketing together for that.
Great. Thank you very much, Peter. And this is really important in terms of building density. And I hope folks will reach out to the planning department and get more details and apply for the funding incentives that are happening. So thanks very much, Mr. Tonazzo, for taking the lead on this and being proactive and having it up and running. And I know that we'll see some really good density happen in our community. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Vezowan. Anyone else on 717? Seeing none, Councillor Hollingsworth, other items on consent?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Councillor Vezowan, that was your only item on consent?
Correct.
Councillor Bruni?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Agenda 7.3, the transit review. I believe it goes to Mr. Lamming or
Mr. Lamming or Ms. Maione, yeah.
Maione.
If you ask it, they'll answer it.
Both of you can share it. When was the last time that we've had a transit review? How long did it take, and what's our expectations with this transit review?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, the last time that a road review was executed was in June of 2018 when the changes were implemented, and it was 2 years prior to that that it started.
So it's 2 years. What do we have a goal? Are we looking for a 2-year period again, or hopefully less?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, hopefully less. The timeline, once we do the first kickoff meeting, is to have this road review completed to bring recommendations to council for August of 2025.
In the review, is part of it going to be about the bus terminal, the transfer, or their recommendations?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni, yes, that's part of it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Bruni. Anyone else on 7.3? Seeing none. Councillor Bruni, other items on consent? Other councillors with items on consent? Councillor Dufour?
Yeah, briefly, Mr. Mayor, just on 7.2, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to highlight what I think is some really good progress on another important piece of former industrial property that's owned by the city of Sault Ste. Marie. It's really nice to see all of the work that we did last term on this property continuing into this term. Hopefully with the provision of these environmental engineering services, we're going to get yet another point on the road of seeing the Gateway site more fully developed met, and it's really nice to see the progress with the hospital going as well as it is, and hopefully we can start to see some more fruits of our labor on the Gateway site soon. So good job, and thank you to all involved. Keep it up.
Thank you, Councillor Dufour. Fully agree. Anyone else on 7.2? Seeing none. Councillor Dufour, other items on consent? Seeing no other items on consent, we can have a vote on the motion. Madam Clerk, that's been read.
I did.
All in favor? That carries.
So that will bring us to agenda item 8.6.1, sale of part 330 Industrial Park Crescent.
I'm in conflict on this item. Councillor Hardy?
There is a report under agenda item 8.6.1. There's not a motion on that report. There is a bylaw, though. I can read the motion for the bylaw. It's a motion by Councillors Caputo and Hollingsworth, resolved that bylaw 2024-176, being a bylaw to declare the city-owned property. I'm not doing the whole legal description like Michael. Being a portion of 330 Industrial Park Crescent as surplus to the city's needs, and to authorize the disposition of the said property to 1584836 Ontario Inc., operating as First General Sault Ste. Marie Rico Briglio, as otherwise directed, be passed in open council the second day of December 2024.
Okay. Who am I going to hear first?
You can ask for questions.
Does anybody have any questions on this? None?
And I have open for it.
Okay, the vote's open. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
And I should put you in the affirmative.
Put me in the affirmative. Yeah, my e-scribe's not working either.
Okay. And Councillor Zagordo as well, and Councillor Vezuelan. It's unanimous. Agenda item 8.6.2 also was accepted from consent because of Councillor Vezuelan's conflict. It's a property sale with respect to 149 Gore Street. Again, there's a report on the agenda, and then there is a bylaw. And that is a motion by Councillors Caputo and Hollingsworth, resolved that bylaw 2024-186, being a bylaw to authorize the sale of surplus property, being Civic 149 Gore Street, to Carmen Muto Plumbing and Heating Inc., be passed in open council the second day of December 2024.
So any questions on this matter? Seeing none. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries.
And that will bring us to, oh, I just need Councillor Gardy. Affirmative? Agenda item 9.1, school safety zone review. It's a motion by Councillors Caputo and Zagordo. Whereas according to www.saultsaintmarie.ca, there are 42 designated school zones throughout the city with speed limits set at 40 kilometers per hour and are enforced 24/7. And whereas in recent years, we have seen an increase in vehicles in school zones due to fewer students relying on the school bus for transportation. And whereas the statistics from the 2023 CAA School Zone Safety Survey show that 82% of parents report having seen unsafe driving behaviors in school zones, especially speeding, double parking, and stopping at undesignated areas. And whereas municipalities are responsible for creating safe school zones and many options to create a safe school zone, so in many cases, school zones can be different in different locations, whereas driver education can be difficult to manage and enforcement of these rules is not always possible, and whereas creating a standard for all school safety zones within Sault Ste. Marie could eliminate driver confusion when entering these zones and create a safer environment for both motorists and pedestrians. Now, therefore, be it resolved that staff review all school safety zones in Sault Ste. Marie to create a plan to standardize these zones. Further, be it resolved that a driver education campaign be brought forward to highlight this plan once it is implemented to increase awareness for motorists and pedestrians of safety standards in these zones.
Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over my time in council, as a councillor, safety in school zones has come up a number of times, and it has come up at this table and with constituents, not only in Ward 3, but all around the city. And myself, as a driver, you know, I have had conversations with our engineering department, with planning, you know, about different ways that we could influence safer school zones. And it came up in a discussion that the speed limit is enforced 24 hours a day, no matter whether there's a flashing light or not. And it really got me thinking, as a driver, a person who's been driving for 24 years, I actually did not know that. And some school zones have flashers, some don't. Some have flashers that aren't operating. Some, you know, they're all very different. And I think after I had the conversation with engineering regarding the flashers, I started asking questions of friends, family, people around the Soo, and folks all had the same reaction as me. They weren't aware. And I think driver awareness is the easiest way to influence safety. If we could standardize these school zones, I think it makes it a lot easier on the driver, on the pedestrian, and makes it a lot safer for the pedestrians. So I hope that we can support this motion and get everything a little bit more standardized and, you know, keep these areas really safe for some of our most vulnerable people in society. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Councillor Zagordo, anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add a few things. Safety of our young people has to be a first priority for us. And I think anytime that we have an opportunity to review and make things better, especially in our school zones, we should take a look at that. So I'm definitely happy to support my colleague in this motion and hope everyone else would support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zagordo. Council, anything? Councillor Hollingsworth?
Thank you. Just a comment. I just want to say thank you for bringing this, Councillor Caputo and Councillor Zagaro. The speed task force feels strongly the same. And as you both are quite aware that this particular concept has already started to be worked on by the task force. So by you bringing it to the table, you are reminding the task force that this should be top priority. So thank you. And also you are using this opportunity to educate the community, showing that we as council do care about our families. So I just want to say thank you for bringing this to the table. And I look forward to having the speed task force report back very soon on the work we've had started on this particular subject and to basically add on your other comments to this. So stay tuned. And at this time, I want to say well done, Speed Task Force, for all the initiatives that you have been working on to this point. And I think our community has already seen some of them and more to come. But again, thank you, Ms. Caputo. Thank you, Councillor Caputo.
Councillor Bruni, yeah.
Or a comment, but are we duplicating the work from the speed task force? Because if we're working on it, do we need a resolution?
Mr. Rumio?
Just asking.
Mr. Mayor to Councilor Bruni, I think it's timely, actually, like through the automated speed enforcement, if approved at budget, we'll have to review all these community safety zones and school zones anyways to make them fit best we can with the automated speed enforcement. So I think it's okay.
Okay, I guess. Okay. Answer, but okay.
It sounds like it may have happened anyways, but it's being brought to the forefront by the request for a resolution.
No, and I'm fine with that. I just don't want another committee or city staff to concentrate on this when the task force is already working on it. It's kind of duplicating the work. That's all I'm saying.
Staff was going to probably be doing this anyways, is what I'm understanding, Mr. Rumio.
Yes.
And now it's happening even more authoritatively.
Maybe a couple more checks and balances, which I see as relevant anyways. So.
Okay. Councillor Gardy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm gonna be supportive of this, but we can implement all we want and spend as much money as we want and have as many task forces as we want about speeding. But if people don't like habitually slow down, a lot of what we do is I don't want to say futile, but we're kind of spinning our tires. So no pun intended. Actually, yeah, I didn't think of that. Thanks, Councillor. The community just has to slow down. The one thing that we hear about most often is speeding, whether it's Fourth Line in my end of town and Councillor Scott's end of town, or Wallace Terrace, or wherever else in town, Queen Street and Churchill Boulevard and other places. People just go too fast. So especially this time of year, if people can take their time moving around the community, it's better for us as residents because everyone's safe. It's better for the environment because you're not burning as much fuel. I'm going to be supportive of this. And one other thing I think, as it relates to school zones, as someone who works in a school every day, one of the biggest barriers and challenges that schools have as it relates to traffic are the amount of families who pick up and drop off their kids and don't use the bus service, right? Which is cool. But I think we have to work a little bit more closely as a community with the different school boards in town to come up with a strategy for trying to alleviate some of that pressure and traffic in school zones. I'm sure Mr. Ramiel and other other people in and around public works or engineering or planning, for that matter, are well aware of different initiatives throughout the province that communities have attempted it with a lot of success in trying to mitigate the problem of congestion in and around schools. And I would just encourage that effort to either start or continue, because when we talk traffic, safety is in schools is mostly around that time of pickup and drop off. And it's not an exaggeration to say that, like, some schools have dozens and dozens and dozens of vehicles. And I can use my school as an example. I work at St. Basil's School. And sometimes at the end of the day, there are cars that are lined up like on St. George's Avenue, waiting to pick up their kids, right? So that creates a lot of congestion in that part of town. So I just thought I would lend that bit of input from my unique perspective, but I'm fully supportive of Councillor Caputo building on some stuff that Councillor Scott and I brought forward a few years ago. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, that was open already on your e-scribe, but all in favor? That carries.
That's unanimous. That will bring us to bylaws. I've got a motion by councillors Gordo and Hollingsworth. Resolved that all bylaws under item 12 of the agenda under date December 2, 2024, save and accept bylaws 2024-176, 2024-182, 2024-183, 2024-184, and 2024-186 be approved.
All in favor? That carries.
Look, those bylaws were voted on already. These three are separated because of Councillor Dufour's conflict. So 2024-182, it's a motion by Councillors Caputo and Hollingsworth, resolved that bylaw 2024-182 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of the agreement between the city and the District of Sault Ste. Marie Social Services Administration Board to enable emergency medical services to continue, the use and responsibilities of the SuperBox key system be passed in open council this second day of December 2024.
All in favor? Carries.
Gardy in the affirmative. And Councillor Bruni in the affirmative. It's unanimous. And bylaw 2024-183, it's an agreement with respect to land ambulance maintenance. It's a motion by Councillors Caputo and Hollingsworth, resolved that bylaw 2024-183 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of the agreement between the City and District of Sault Ste. Marie Social Services Administration Board for Fire Services Support Services Division to provide maintenance services on emergency medical services vehicles be passed in open council the second day of December 2024.
All in favor?
That also is unanimous. And 2024-184 is an agreement with respect to the 525 Albert Street East parking lot. A motion by Councillors Caputo and Hollingsworth, resolved that bylaw 2024-184 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of the agreement between the city and the Sault Ste. Marie Housing Corporation to add city-owned property located at 525 Albert Street East to the original lease be passed in open council the second day of December 2024.
All in favor? That carries.
Councillor Caputo in the affirmative and Councillor Gardy. So that's unanimous. And if a motion by Councillors Gordo and Spina, resolved that this council now adjourn.
All in favor? That carries.